Rick Minner here again. Back here working on this Model AA Doodlebug project. It's actually been in one of our earlier videos, but the weather's warmed up some and we're back working outside. Beautiful Saturday afternoon, 1st of February. Today we're going to put a new carburetor on here, another carburetor. In the earlier video I mentioned that when we bought this thing from James Crane's family, didn't have carburetor on it. My buddy John Walls watched the video and called, said, next time you're up this way, I got a carburetor for it. So here's what he provided for us. So we're fixing to install this thing. It's not a big project, but my theory has always been the way to complete a project is just get one bolt or one thing bolted on every day or every time you work on it. Sooner or later you'll be up and ready to start it. So we'll get this little project and move on to something else. Really glad somebody before him that took the carburetor off stuffed this rag up in here, because you don't want critters climbing up in here and getting stuff in the engine and moisture and all too. So looks like they did a pretty nice job of protecting that. I think this may have been welded on at some point. The surface under here seems pretty good, so I think we're good to go there. I stole this gasket out of a kit that came for I think it's a Ford tractor. So at some point I guess I'll pay the price for that. But for now we're going to put it on here and use it on an A model. Fits really good, by the way. I would have preferred I had studs to put on here, but went to the local parts store and they didn't seem to know what I was talking about, so I ended up with two bolts here, 5/16 bolts. There's not many parts stores that keep up with what you need for a 100-year-old engine, I guess. Can't really blame them. Close to 100 years old, 95. As I said before, it's a pretty spring day in February. We've been out planting back Christmas trees this morning and picked up some limbs from the two snow/ice storms, or not storms, I guess, just events we've had in the last couple of weeks. And while I got some good bright sunshine left, thought I'd get this carburetor on here. Y'all just missed several formations of sandhill cranes flying over, headed north. As my daughter Stephanie pointed out, I don't know what the groundhog's going to have to predict. If the cranes are flying north, I'd say that's a good prediction that our winter may be on the short rows here. I'm just going to bolt this up for now. The coupler that hooks this rod up to the carburetor, I bought one from Snyder's. I got to figure out what I did with it. Either that or I'll order another one. But it's a neat system because coupler slides over here and the spring holds it on there, and you can pull the rod back, pull the choke on, or you can twist it and it adjusts the carburetor. It's an ingenious system. I really like that. Hook the throttle up there at some point. Probably just going to put a flexible line and a snapper Comet lawnmower tank of some sort on here to get it running. Maybe go back and at some point hook up the original A model gas tank. I guess we could call this a successful outing. We'll be back with you shortly. Well, Sunday afternoon, pretty nice day again today. I'm going to try to do a little more work on our Model AA Doodlebug project. The goal for this afternoon is to get the fuel lines hooked up. I won't have the tank ready yet, but we'll hook the line up, hook up the choke throttle control or the carburetor control rod on here. I found one in a kit of some parts I bought from Snyder for another Doodlebug we're working on. Then we'll have time, we'll try to get a little work on the ignition system, see if we can get some fire to the distributor here. I'm sure we have to clean all that up. And then I bought a water hose from the Napa store a while ago that I think I can cut a section out of and put the lower radiator hose on it. So we'll get to work here. I guess the first thing, I bought a kit from the Tractor Supply store today. It's got 1/4-inch fuel line and a little cutoff valve, and I also got a filter here somewhere. Put this inline filter in, get that on there, and then we'll try to get the fuel part pretty close to ready to go and move on to something else. I hadn't gotten us a fuel tank yet. I'm going to take one off an old snapper lawnmower, put that on there. A little while ago, some more sandhill cranes flew over. We talked about them yesterday. That sure tells me that they think winter's over, but I heard on the news that all the groundhogs decided that we'll have 6 more weeks of winter. We might have 5 more weeks because the forecast going forward is real pretty weak coming up. So I'll work a little bit, put this on there, and be back with you in a little bit. Got the fuel line on. I pulled it out a little bit wide just to get it around the exhaust and all. Ran it over, and I'm gonna mount the tank inside or on this side of the firewall. And I don't have that tank here yet, but I've got it all in line. I got to get a couple of clamps to put on here. The clips I had, the self-tightening ones, they're made for a 5/16 line, and this is a 1/4. So I had to get them and put them on after the fact, but I don't think that's a problem. And I mentioned the throttle control. I found this that I bought from Snyder for another Doodlebug. I don't really need the rod. I think I'll leave the rusty one on here and then just buy the spring and the bottom piece here to replace it on the other project. I'm bad about robbing one thing for another, but Sunday afternoon you want to get something done. Sometimes the only way to do it is to make compromises. So I'm going to slide the spring on here, and then this coupler just hooks these two together like so. So when you get them in there, then it'll pull from inside. I'll put this. Well, maybe I'll put it the other way. So now, I believe we have I'll have to get that spring fastened, but we have essentially got it to working the way it should. So, pretty pleased with that. The coil wire's gone. I actually found one on an old 292 Ford or 272 Ford V8 truck, and I believe it's going to work. You see this right there. But I'm going to leave it off for now. I'm going to take this distributor cap off and see if we can do something with the points there. This rotor button looks like it's kind of cruddy. Got some stuff. I'm going to scrape it with my knife and get a clean surface. And I'm going to take my phone camera loose and try to get a picture of the points, because they're about as corroded as you'll find. And my plan is to file them a little bit, try to get them cleaned up. And I've gotten where I spray some PB Blast on them. It doesn't seem like that would work. We've had a lot of success with that, getting the old time points to fire, because a lot of times if you make the old ones fire, you're better off in trying to buy a replacement. I don't think the quality is quite as good as what it was in one time. I'm going to take the camera and try to show you inside that distributor here right now. This yellow stuff you see in there, I'm going to move my finger and make them break here. See, that's the contact part there, and it's just nasty yellow stuff in there. So I'm going to start out with my little points file here. And I have the worst time keeping up with these points files. I don't know where they go. I don't know whether I leave them in my breeches and my wife washes them and they go down the drain or what happens. But let me set this off and see it better. I don't know what happened to these points files. They work really good. They're like $4 and something at the parts store, but I can't keep up with them. I probably lose 5 or 6 of them a year and they never show up anywhere. They look a lot better with just the yellow stuff knocked off of them. You can see it on the file. See how that can get nasty looking stuff there? I'm gonna give them another little whack or two right quick and be right back with you. They cleaned up fairly good, but I'm gonna give them a little squirt with a PB blaster. Let that sit a little bit. Put the cap back on. I'm gonna go on the other side, try to make our water hose work. Little update here. Got the cap and the rotor back on in there. This old coil looks pretty bad. I don't know whether it's gonna work or not. We'll check it out before we try to crank it, but that's no big deal to change it out. But the coil wire reaches, but I did turn this coupler around here. I like the way it looks. It's supposed to go this way, and I got there's a little piece in here that holds tension on the spring that fastens in the firewall here. Just a little, I don't know if I can get it out whether you can see it or not, but it's just a little flat piece that holds that tension on that spring there. So that's fixed where it's supposed to be. So hope I didn't mislead anybody before. But I think we're ready to go here as far as fuel. Get my little lawnmower tank in there. Like I say, we'll go around there and try to make that makeshift water hose work. I'm going to start by checking to be sure this hose will work. Once again, somebody put some rags in here back in the day, and that certainly helps keep the critters out of both the engine block and the radiator. But I'm going to check this in just to be sure that it's 1 3/4 inside diameter is what should work. So I'm going to double check these will fit on there, and then I'll fits on the radiator fine, and the motor. The trick now is to measure 2 or 3 times and cut once, because if I cut it too short, I made a big mistake. And I don't want to waste a $23 hose. But anyway, you can see whatever this fit, this has a bigger outlet on this side than down there. But the part I need is, I think I can just cut it maybe right. Let's see. Cut it right along in there. I think I can make that work. Right in the bend. I hope that's not an issue, but we'll figure it out. Be right back. Well, I measured it 2 or 3 times, cut once, stuck a couple of clamps on here. I sure hope I didn't cut this thing too short and look like an idiot on YouTube, but I did about the best I could. So now's the moment of truth. We'll see what happened. That looks encouraging, thank goodness. I believe that'll work. Looks like Henry Ford might have even designed that hose there just to go right there. I'm really tickled with that. I'm going to tighten these clamps up, and somebody's already had a jumper wire here that runs to the coil. I'm going to clean this connection up, get a battery in it, cleans up down here, and see if we can get the starter to turn, and get some fire over here and see if we can make it crank, but that'll be maybe tomorrow or the next day. One thing I always think about when I'm working on radiator hoses, when my wife Joanne and I, like 40-something years ago, went on one of our first real dates. We went to down 40 miles or so down south of here to all-you-can-eat catfish restaurant. We got about halfway down there in our '69 Ford pickup and blew the top radiator hose right there where it fastens on the radiator, just really close to the outlet there. Well, we ended up taking the radiator hose off and cutting it where it split, and took the clamp off on the other side and slid the hose to where it just barely reaching both ends, tightened it back up, and we'd stopped next to somebody's driveway, and it had rained and there was water in the ditch. So we took some couple of bottles and a can or two and dipped water out of that. I dipped water and handed it up to Joanne. She poured it in the radiator until we got it back full, and she was ready to go back home, but we were too close not to go eat at that point. So we got down there, and all the way down there she said she wasn't going to eat catfish because she thought they were going to look, the fish head would look like a cat with whiskers and all. She wasn't going to eat that. So anyway, I convinced her to try some, and she loved them. And so we went for years down there to eat on Saturday nights, and they eventually closed up. But I saw on Facebook the other day they're reopening, so we'll have to go back down there another time or two for old time's sake. Anyway, I thought we had a successful afternoon, and we'll check with y'all tomorrow. Well, we're back to food with the AA Doodlebug again for a little bit. A couple of things commenting on our earlier videos. I went back and watched them last night. One, I didn't realize my overall strap was crossed over. And I used to kind of laugh at old men back when I was a kid that had their overalls not looking too good, but I guess age has caught up with me. It didn't feel any different, but it looked different on the video. Also, the helicopters that flew over didn't sound quite as loud on the ground as they did on that video. There's a group that flies like Vietnam era helicopters out of the airport. Atlanta Motor Speedway is only about 3 miles away. The crow flies from us, and I didn't realize how loud they were flying over. And also the dog you heard barking just then, it's not mine, it's my neighbor's, but they're good dogs, but the microphone picks them up mighty good. Like I say, I don't have any water in it. I did hook up my little Snapper Comet lawnmower tank. I spun the starter over a few times before I turned the camera on, and it sounds like maybe one of the valves is stuck open, but we'll give it a try again, see what happens. I'm gonna hook up the little jumper wire and we'll see what happens. No seat in here, you can tell. It's kind of awkward sitting here. Here goes. Well, maybe not. Well, as I suspected, there's something going on with a couple of cylinders. I used a screwdriver to short out the plugs best I could. It looks like something on the back end back here on number 3 and number 4 aren't working too good, but hey, it runs, and we'll get some water in it, maybe drive it down to the barn and see what we can do with it. Well, I put some oil in the 2 cylinders that were skipping and fired it back up off camera, and it sounded a good bit better. So I think maybe I'm gonna let it soak in some transmission fluid overnight try it tomorrow. But in the meantime, even though we got water in it now, but I don't have the alternator on it, so nothing to hold the fan, make the fan belt turn. So I just want to fire it up just for a minute, try it out in reverse and forward, see if the clutch and transmission is going to be okay, and then call it a day. Well, it quit for some reason. Sound like maybe out of gas from my little tank, but all in all, I'm pretty pleased with the way things went today. Talk to you on the next time. We hope y'all got as much enjoyment out of watching this video as we did out of making it. We're trying really hard to produce some videos that are worthwhile and help y'all learn about what we're doing here at Inman Farm Heritage Days. If you like it, if you don't mind, help us out, click that like button and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next time.